My mother-in-law sneered during my baby shower and I was shaken, until my husband said, "And after what we're about to announce, you'll never be welcome again." I, 32 female, have always had a rocky relationship with my mother-in-law. She's manipulative, passive-aggressive, and never accepted me. At my baby shower, she humiliated me in front of friends and family with a gift meant to jab at my parenting. I was humiliated and furious. But then my husband, 35 male, usually calm and conflict-averse, stood up in front of everyone and said something I never expected. "I can't believe she gave us used baby shoes," I whispered to Julian while the last few guests filtered out of our backyard, the sun beginning to dip behind the oaks. My hands trembled slightly, still clutching the ridiculous parenting book she'd paired with them. "They were mine," he said quietly, eyes fixed on the horizon, jaw clenched. And she knew what she was doing. I never expected to marry into a family like his. When I met Julian, he was grounded, thoughtful, and the most emotionally intelligent man I had ever dated. We met at a corporate training conference in Atlanta. I was consulting on a rebrand, he was handling back-end systems for his company. Our conversations started over coffee and turned into 6-hour dinners. He listened. He really listened. That was rare. But from the moment I met his mother, Margaret, I felt something was off. I don't mean dramatic or overt hostility, those would have been easier to navigate. No, she was subtle, polished. The kind of woman who could insult you while asking if you wanted more tea. At our engagement dinner, she smiled tightly and said, "You're not really from around here, are you?" I smiled back. "Asheville's not so far." She sipped her wine. "No, I suppose not. But it's a different kind of place, isn't it? We're more grounded in Franklin." She always said things like that, coded, laced with judgment, but hard to call out directly. And Julian, caught between loyalty and discomfort, would usually change the subject, try to keep the peace. I hated the feeling of being an outsider, but I convinced myself it would change once we were married. That maybe, over time, she'd soften. She didn't. If anything, it got worse. When we told her we were expecting, her first response wasn't congratulations, but "Oh, so soon?" Then she launched into advice we didn't ask for, what prenatal vitamins to take, how I'd be foolish to consider a midwife, and how these new parenting fads were endangering children. Julian defended me. In small, quiet ways, but he was still reluctant to fully confront her. I understood, sort of. She'd raised him alone after his father died. Their bond was complicated, but it wore me down. Every visit left me emotionally wrung out. Every phone call, every comment, every smug smile, it was death by 1,000 cuts. My own mother tried to help me stay calm about it. "Pick your battles," she'd say. "Focus on your baby." So when Julian suggested a small, simple baby shower in our backyard, I was hesitant. "She'll come," I said. "She'll behave," he replied, with that quiet optimism I'd always admired. "We'll keep it short, Loki. You deserve this, Ratch." So I agreed. Zara, my best friend since college, helped set it all up. She was brilliant, matching pale pinks and creams, building little stations for baby advice cards and mocktails. It was sweet, simple, and full of people who genuinely cared. My parents were there, beaming. Julian's coworkers, a couple of my cousins from Charlotte. It should have been perfect. And for the first hour, it almost was, until Margaret arrived. She wore white. Linen, of course. Hair swept back into a pristine chignon, sunglasses perched atop her head like she was attending Wimbledon. Isla, Julian's younger sister, followed behind her, in stilettos, sipping an iced latte she never put down. No hug, no congrats. Just a curt, nice setup, as she handed me a small, rectangular box. I noticed there was no card. We moved on quickly. I tried not to let it ruin the mood. Julian stayed close, sensing my tension. The afternoon went on, filled with laughter, gentle teasing, and games I actually enjoyed. Zara knew I hated anything too cheesy. For a moment, I let myself relax. Then came time to open gifts. One by one, the guests watched as we unwrapped diapers, onesies, little baby books, handmade blankets. I was truly touched by the thoughtfulness. I got to Margaret's box near the end. I should have known. Inside was an old book, Raising Proper Children, with pages yellowed and brittle. And baby shoes, dirty, worn at the toes, leather cracking. Before I could speak, she said, "They were Julian's. He wore them for his christening. Since I assume you're not planning one, someone should be thinking of the child's soul." Everyone went still. I felt heat rise in my chest. My heart beat like a drum. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. Julian stood up beside me. And everything shifted. "We weren't going to say this today," he began, voice steady, "but I think the timing's just right." His eyes swept across the small crowd, then landed on his mother. "This isn't just about the shoes, or the book, or the endless critiques about how we're doing everything wrong. This is about control." People stared. Some shifted uncomfortably. Margaret's face was unreadable. He continued, "For over a year now, you've pushed boundaries. You've dismissed Rachel, belittled her choices, questioned everything we do. And I've let it slide, thinking maybe you'd come around." He paused. "Look at me. But watching you sit there today, trying to stay strong while she humiliates you in front of our friends, I'm done trying." Margaret blinked. Isla's latte cup froze halfway to her mouth. Julian took a breath. "So here's the truth. We've sold the house. We're moving, back to Asheville near Rachel's family, somewhere safe. Somewhere where our daughter won't grow up hearing her mother talked down to." A murmur rippled through the crowd. He faced his mother. "And after what we're about to announce, you'll never be welcome again." There it was, clear, unapologetic. She sputtered, "You're being dramatic." "No," Julian replied. "I'm a husband and a father." Guests left in waves after that. Some offered quiet support, others awkward goodbyes. Isla stormed off without a word. Margaret stayed the longest, trying to reason with Julian, then accusing me of poisoning him. He didn't budge. He told her, gently but firmly, that it was over. No more phone calls, no more visits, no more games, we were free. In the weeks that followed, the house slowly began to empty out, box by box, drawer by drawer. I packed with care but not sentiment. Every time I folded a blanket or wrapped a vase in newspaper, it felt like I was peeling back another layer of tension that had settled into our home like dust. Julian took charge of the logistics. He arranged the movers, handled the paperwork, even called the utility companies in Asheville to get things set up ahead of our arrival. It wasn't like him to be this assertive with family matters. But now he was a man transformed. I think it shocked him too, how firm his voice had sounded, how final his words had been. Margaret tried to call, twice, then 3 more times. Each voicemail was a variation of disbelief and victimhood. The first was coolly furious. "I don't know what's gotten into you, Julian, but I will not be treated this way. After all I've done." The second one was almost pitiful. "I didn't mean for it to come off like that. I want what's best for you." He didn't listen to the rest. He deleted them without hesitation. By the time we left Franklin, I hadn't spoken to her since the baby shower. Neither had he. Our new house in Asheville was modest, but had a warm, lived-in feel from the start. It sat on the edge of a quiet neighborhood near Bent Creek, with tall pines in the backyard and a creaky porch swing that I immediately loved. My parents helped us unpack the first weekend. My mom brought a casserole that made Julian tear up, though he'd never admit it. That first night, lying on the mattress in the middle of a room full of boxes, I watched Julian fall asleep with his hand on my belly and thought, this is what safety feels like. We didn't talk about Margaret much at first. It wasn't that we were avoiding the subject, more like we were letting it fade. Like a bruise that no longer hurt, just lingered. But one morning, about 2 weeks before my due date, Julian turned to me over breakfast and said, "Do you think I should have cut her off sooner?" I paused. "Do you think you could have?" He shook his head slowly. "No. I don't think I was ready, but I see it clearly now. Everything she ever did, it was always about her. Every smile came with strings. Every compliment was a setup for the next critique." We sat in silence for a moment. Then he added, "I'm just sorry I let it go on so long that you had to carry it." I reached for his hand. "We're here now, that's what matters." My labor started on a rainy Tuesday morning. It wasn't dramatic. No water breaking in the aisle of a grocery store kind of thing. Just slow, steady contractions that built up over hours. Julian was a rock. He kept me calm, made jokes at just the right times, held my hand through the worst of it. Nora arrived just after midnight. She had a head full of dark hair and the most delicate little hands I had ever seen. When the nurse placed her on my chest, I felt something unlock inside me. It wasn't just love. It was a relief. Like the final weight I didn't know I was carrying had slipped off my shoulders. Julian kissed my forehead and whispered, "She'll never know what that kind of pain feels like. I promise you." And I believed him. 2 weeks after Nora's birth, a package arrived at our new address. It had no return label, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Inside, a baby sweater, powder blue, carefully folded. And a note, "I know you think I'm the villain, maybe I am, but I'm still her grandmother. Please think of me when the time is right." Julian read it once, folded it, and dropped it into the trash without a word. We didn't speak about it that night. But I lay awake, watching Nora sleep in the bassinet beside me, wondering, if someone can't love the mother, can they truly love the child? Or does that kind of love always come with conditions? What people often don't talk about is the aftermath of cutting someone off. Not the drama, but the silence that comes later, the space it leaves. It's not just absence, it's recalibration. You start reevaluating old memories, realizing how much you tolerated, how often you bite your tongue. It sneaks up on you when you're folding laundry or heating up dinner. The "I should have said" S. The "why didn't I leave sooner" S. Julian was going through it too. I could tell. He'd stare off sometimes while feeding Nora or standing at the sink. One evening, I found him in the nursery, just standing there. Nora was asleep in her crib, and he was watching her with this mix of awe and ache. "She's so small," he said, "and so perfect. I don't understand how someone could hold something like this and still choose cruelty." He didn't say Margaret's name. He didn't need to. A few days later, Isla sent a message through Zara. I wasn't surprised she didn't reach out directly. Cowardice was a family trait. Zara forwarded it to me without comment. "I still don't agree with how things went down, but you should know Mom isn't doing well. She misses Julian. She misses the baby. You don't have to forgive her, but maybe just reconsider. It's family." That word, family. It's used so often to excuse so much. Julian read the message and just nodded. "Of course she misses us, but that's not enough." And he was right. Missing someone doesn't make you safe for them. Julian never responded to Isla. He didn't block her, didn't yell, didn't even acknowledge the message. He simply carried on folding Nora's tiny onesies and humming softly as he did. That quiet resolve, measured, unshakable, was better than any outburst. It was his answer. And mine, but the silence from our side must have stirred something on theirs, because 2 weeks later we received a letter in the mail. Not a message, not a card, a formal letter. Typed. Signed by Margaret Calloway. It was 4 pages long. 4 full pages of thinly veiled guilt-tripping, hollow apologies buried under qualifications, and a long-winded defense of her intentions. Not once did she mention my name. She referred to me only as your wife or the girl. In one part she wrote, "It's clear she's come between us, Julian, but I hope you remember the boy you used to be, before her influence changed everything." That was the nail in the coffin. Julian stood at the kitchen counter, read it in silence, then without a word, walked over to the shredder and fed the pages in, piece by piece. I watched as the neatly typed lies were reduced to soft, curling ribbons. He looked at me and said, "We're done for good." And so we lived, peacefully. Nora turned 6 months old on a warm September morning. My parents came over with a homemade peach pie, Julian grilled on the deck. The air smelled like oak and fresh-cut grass. We danced barefoot with Nora in the yard to a crackly old jazz album we both loved. That evening, as we sat under the string lights in our backyard, Julian looked over and said, "I never thought freedom would feel like this." But then came the satisfying twist. A couple of months after that, Julian received an email from a former coworker at his old company in Franklin. It was short, friendly, casual. "Hey man, random, but your mom dropped by the office last week. Something about needing access to your employment documents for family estate planning. Said you gave her permission. We didn't give her anything, but just wanted to let you know in case something weird's going on." Julian's face darkened. She was still trying to claw her way in, still assuming people would trust her, still thinking she had the power to act like his guardian, even now. And that's when we had the idea, not for revenge in the bitter sense, but something cleaner. Finer. I didn't want to scream at her. I didn't want to fight her. I wanted her to sit in the truth of what she'd lost and to see what she'd never touch again. So we created something, a digital announcement, a private website, just for friends and family. Photos, videos, updates, little milestone moments with Nora, her first giggle, her first crawl, her smashing a birthday cupcake into Julian's beard. My mother held her hand as she toddled through a pumpkin patch. We called it Nora's Nest. And every person who ever mattered to Margaret was invited. Everyone except Margaret and Isla. It wasn't public. It wasn't spiteful. It was just invisible to them. But of course, word spread. People saw, they talked. Margaret heard about it through her bridge club, from a neighbor who happened to be Julian's old high school English teacher. One of her friends told her, innocently enough, "Oh, Julian's baby girl is just darling. I saw the photos from that site. What's it called again? Nora's Nest. So sweet how close he is to Rachel's parents." That was the revenge, not violence, not threats, just a window into everything she wasn't invited to be a part of. And it worked. Isla tried once more to breach the wall, sending a saccharine email asking for the website link. Julian replied with a single sentence, "This is a space for people who respect and love Nora's mother." She never responded. The thing about cutting toxic people out is that it doesn't have to be loud. The real power comes when you stop trying to change them. When you accept that the apology you deserve will probably never come, and you move on anyway. And maybe that's what Margaret never understood. Love isn't about control. It isn't about legacy or tradition or appearances. It's about presence. And she forfeited hers, Nora's too now. She loves puzzles, mango slices, and putting stickers on every surface she can reach. We visit my parents every weekend. Julian's building her a playhouse in the backyard, complete with a little mailbox and a tiny flower box. He still hums while he works. Sometimes, in the stillness of the morning, I watch them together. Her sitting in his lap with a book, her hand resting on his chest. And I think about that day, my baby shower, and how one woman's need to dominate turned into the very thing that freed us. She thought she could shame me. She thought she'd won. But instead, she gave me the greatest gift of all. She revealed herself, and we walked away, not in anger, not in fear, but in peace. The kind of peace she will never be part of again.